teaching you biology, and the topic I'll be teaching you is cell structure and functions. Yes, cell structure and function. So we are going to be learning about the structure of a cell and how this structure enables it to perform its functions. So, but before we go into it, we need to understand what a cell is. So, a cell is the structural and functional unit of life. That means with the aid of a cell, living organisms are able to carry out all their life processes, be it respiration, nutrition, reproduction, growth, feeding, and so on. We can see that all these life processes are the characteristics of living things. That means for an organism to be living, for it to be able to carry out its characteristics, the cell needs to be functioning. So we know that Robert Hooke is regarded as the father of cell because he was the first to describe the honeycomb structure of a cell. The work of Robert Hooke and the other scientists gave rise to what is known today as the cell theory. So the cell theory tells us that cell is the structural and functional unit of life, and that all life comes from a previously existing cell, and that there is no life other than the life of a cell. So, based on this, we can see that different we have different types. We have two types of cell. So, we have, based on the structure, cells can be grouped into prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell. So the prokaryotic cell are the cells that do not possess nucleus. Yes, they lack nucleus, and their organelles, when I mean organelles, that means the components of the cell, that means the structures that are present in the cell. The organelles are not membrane bound, unlike the eukaryotic cell that contains nucleus, and the organelles are bonded with membrane. So they are membrane bound. So we can see the differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell. So example of organisms that possess prokaryotic cell are bacteria. So their cell lacks nucleus and they are not bonded with membrane. Their organelles are not bonded with membrane. While the eukaryotic cells are membrane bound and they have nucleus, which can be seen in higher organisms. So these structures, the difference in structure will determine the function that a cell will perform. So though prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell, they are different, they have some things in common. So one of such things is the cell membrane. So the cell membrane, which is a selectively permeable membrane that allows material in and out of the cell. So it's both present in prokaryotic cell and as well as in eukaryotic cell. And also cytoplasm, which is the inner space of the cell. So cytoplasm is common to both types of cell. And also genetic material. So this genetic material, which contains the genetic information, so it's present in prokaryotic cell and also in eukaryotic cell. Now, living organism can be classified into two based on the numbers of cells that they possess. So we have the unicellular organisms. So the unicellular organisms, they are organisms that possess only one single cell. So they have just one cell. With the aid of this one cell, of this single cell, they are able to carry out all their life's activities. Activities like nutrition, movement, reproduction, excretion, and so on is carried out using just a single cell. Example of such organisms are euglena, amoeba, and chlamydomonas. While the multicellular organisms are organisms that possess two or more cells. So Example of such organisms, we have dog, goat, flowering plants, man, toad, fish, etc. and so on. So all these organisms, you can see the numbers of cell varies depending on the complexity of the organisms. Now, these are the components that are present in cells. So like I said earlier, we call all these components, we call them organelles. That means all components that are present in a cell. So we are going to be looking at the different structure that make up a cell and their functions, how they enable living organism to carry out their activities. So the first one we are going to be talking about is the cell membrane. So this cell membrane, so that's the cell membrane. So this cell membrane, so I have to draw another layer to show that it is a bi-layer, it is double. The membrane is a double membrane. So it's a lipid bilayer structure that surrounds the cell. So it surrounds the cell. So this cell membrane, like I said earlier, that is a selectively permeable structure. So that means it will allow some material in and out of the cell, and it will not allow some material in and out of the cell. So that's the function of cell membrane. And there are some materials that are present on the cell membrane. Materials like cholesterol, phospholipids, proteins, and so on. These materials they perform different functions on the cell membrane, which helps the membrane to be able to carry out its function. So, apart from being a selectively permeable membrane, the cell membrane also allows communication between cell and its environment. So it allows the cell to communicate with the environment, because we have the extracellular matrix and the intracellular matrix. So the cell membrane allows a particular cell to be able to communicate with its environment. And also, not only does a cell communicate with the environment, it also communicates with the surrounding cells. It communicates with surrounding cells. So, and this is done with the aid of a cell membrane. Another thing is that this cell membrane enables cell signaling. So it enables cell signaling. These are the functions of a cell membrane. So the next organelle that we're going to be looking at is this organelle called the nucleus. So this nucleus is a spherical organelle that is centrally located. It is located centrally and is spherical in shape. So it is the largest organelle in the cell. It's about 70% by volume of the cell. So for us to know the functions of this nucleus, we need to look into different structures that are present in the nucleus. So the first one we'll be talking about is the nuclear membrane, otherwise known as nuclear envelope. This nuclear membrane is a double membrane also, and a selectively permeable membrane. So they are double and they run parallel to each other. So this membrane surrounds the nucleus completely. So it will allow some materials into the and outside the cell, and it will also prevent some material in and out of the cell, thereby maintaining the integrity of the nucleus. So it separates the content of the cytoplasm from the content of the nucleus, just like the cell membrane, which maintains the integrity of the cell, because it will also prevent some material in and out of the cell, and it will allow some material in and out of the cell. So they both maintain integrity of the structure that they enclose. So on this nuclear membrane, we have some pores. Let me use another color to indicate these pores. So these pores, they are tiny pores, very tiny, that they will not allow large molecules and large proteins in and out of the cell. So these are called nuclear pores. Nuclear pores. So the nuclear pores are present on the nuclear membrane. So they are so tiny in width that large molecules and large proteins will not be able to pass through them, so thereby maintaining. So this is how the nuclear membrane is able to maintain the content, is able to protect the content of the nucleus, and by separating them from the content of the cytoplasm. So other things that we have in the nucleus, we have this dense spot, we call it nucleolus. So this dense spot, we call it nucleolus. So this nucleolus is a dense spot in the nucleus. This is where transcription of RNA, a typical type of RNA, we call it ribosomal RNA. So the transcription takes place in the nucleus. So now we now have some material here. We have some material here. We call this chromatin. So chromatin. This chromatin is a complex. Is a complex of DNA and proteins. The condensation of this chromatin forms the chromosome, and you know that the genetic information of living organisms are in the DNA. They are present in the DNA. So it's the DNA that carries the genetic information of a living organism. So these DNA are present in the chromatin. So we also have other structure that we call nuclear lamina. This is a protein mesh that gives mechanical support to keep the nucleus in place. So it gives mechanical support to the nucleus. So moving from there, we are moving to this organelle that is very close to the nucleus. So this organelle is called the rough endoplasmic reticulum. The rough endoplasmic reticulum. So this endoplasmic reticulum, you can see, is very close to the nucleus, and on the surface, on the cytoplasmic surface, we can see these tiny structures there. So these are called ribosomes. So ribosomes are present on the cytoplasmic surface of the rough endoplasmic reticulum. So what is the function of rough endoplasmic reticulum? So the function of rough endoplasmic reticulum is to take developing protein from the cytoplasm and continues their development. So the rough endoplasmic reticulum takes developing protein from the cytoplasm and continues their development. So it develops them and it folds them. So before they are being transported to the Golgi apparatus. So Correctly folded protein will be transported, while incorrectly folded protein will remain in the cell and they are going to be destroyed there. So the function of the rough endoplasmic reticulum is development of protein, the continuous development of protein. They fold protein and they take it to the uh, and the protein after being folded correctly will be taken to the Golgi apparatus. So we also have this organelle here is called the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Smooth endoplasmic reticulum. You can see it. So we have two endoplasmic reticulum. We have the rough endoplasmic reticulum and the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. So what is the difference between the rough and the smooth endoplasmic reticulum? The difference is that the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, unlike the rough endoplasmic reticulum, is devoid of ribosomes. So it does not have any association with ribosome. So there is no ribosome on the surface of the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. So what is the function of the smooth endoplasmic reticulum? So it contains important enzymes. It contains important enzymes which are responsible for the synthesis of phospholipids, lipids, and cholesterol. So it has enzymes that are responsible for the production, for the synthesis of these important materials. And another thing is that it also plays an important role in the metabolism of drugs and toxins. It plays important role in the metabolism of drugs and toxins. So the next one is we have this. We call this one the ribosomes. Ribosomes. So we have this structure, ribosomes. So what is the function of ribosomes? They are responsible for protein synthesis. So they synthesize protein. That's the function of ribosomes. So from there we move to this structure here. We call this structure Golgi apparatus. So the Golgi apparatus, I said it, I made mention of it earlier. So that correctly folded materials from the rough endoplasmic reticulum will be taken to the Golgi apparatus. So this Golgi apparatus is a double membrane bond organelle. So it has about 5 to 8 folds. About 5 to 8 folds. You can see. It has about 5 to 8 folds. And these folds are called cysteine. So the folds are called cysteine. So it has about 5 to 8 folds called cysteine. So what is the function of the Golgi apparatus? So the Golgi apparatus is responsible for the packaging of and modification of materials. It's responsible for packaging, modification, and of material and transportation of materials. So it and also the proteins that are being folded by the rough endoplasmic reticulum will also be received by Golgi apparatus, and it's also going to modify, it's going to modify them. So packaging, modification and distribution of material takes place in the Golgi apparatus. So now we have this organelle here. So this one and this one, they are both the same. So this is called mitochondria because there are two. So for the singular is mitochondrion. So but these are two, so they are mitochondria. So this mitochondria, we can see they are important organelles in the cell also. So they can be, so they are oval or rod in shape. So is either their shape is oval or is rod, and they are double membrane bond. They are double membrane bond. So this mitochondrion is present in all cells except in mature erythrocytes. That means in mature red blood cells, mitochondria is not present in mature erythrocytes. So this mitochondria is also known as the powerhouse of the cell because it's the cell where within this organelle the generation of ATP, which the body use for energy, takes place. So let's look at the structure of this cell, of this organelle. Like I said that it has double membrane. It has double membrane. So we have the outer membrane and the inner membrane. So the inner membrane is folded, So there is an intermembrane space. You can see the intermembrane space between the outer and the inner membrane. So this is the intermembrane space. Intermembrane space. So that's the intermembrane space that is between the outer membrane and the inner membrane. Now, the inner membrane, now we are going to be talking about the inner membrane. It is folded. It is folded into what we call cristae. It is folded into what is called cristae. So, and it is filled with matrix. So within this matrix, we have numerous enzymes that are present there, which are used for different processes, different metabolism processes in the body. One of such enzymes is what we call the ATP synthase enzyme. Within this place, within this inner matrix, we have the ATP synthase. ATP synthase enzyme, which is responsible for the generation of ATP. I've said it that ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate, that is the energy, that is the fuel that the body uses, that's the energy that the body uses. So the ATP synthase enzyme is responsible for the synthesis of ATP. And another thing it does is that it regulates, it controls the material that goes in and out of the cell. Yes, it controls the materials that goes in and out of the cell. So there is another important thing about this mitochondria is that they undergo cell division. Cell division. So there's something we call mitochondrial DNA. So there is a DNA that is present in this mitochondria that can be traced to the maternal lineage. So that's one thing about the mitochondria. So the mitochondrial DNA can be traced to the maternal lineage. So from there, we move to this organelle here. This organelle here, we call it centrioles. Centrioles. So that is centrioles. You can see. So it's a cylindrical organelle. You can see from the shape. It's a cylindrical organelle, which is very important in the cell, and it is composed of what is called microtubules. It is composed of microtubules. So what are the functions of centrioles? The first thing about that centrioles does, the first thing that it does is that it takes part in cell division. So during cell division, it is responsible for the formation of spindle fibers which separate the chromosomes during cell division. You know, the mitotic spindle, it separates the chromosomes during cell division. Another thing is that the centriole form the base for cilia and flagella, and this cilia and flagella is what cell use in movement. Like the sperm cell, it use flagella to move. So that is it, and they form microtubules. So these centrioles, you can see that it is very close to the nuclear envelope. Yes, and it is very close to the, is located close to the nuclear envelope, and it is located within the centrosome. Yes, so what encloses the centriole is what is known as the centriosome. Okay, so from there we move to this organelle here. This organelle is known as, so the next one we are going to be talking about is this organelle here. We call it lysosome. Yes, so this lysosome, they are also membrane bond organelle. You can see that's membrane that bond is. And one thing about uh, lysosome is that it is acidic in nature, and it is generated from Golgi apparatus. It is generated from Golgi apparatus. So this lysosome contains a lot of hydrolytic enzymes which take part in the recycling system of the cell. So they are responsible for phagocytosis. This is a process whereby harmful materials are engulfed, are ingested by the cell, and they are going to be destroyed, so that they are not going to cause harm to the body. Harmful materials like viruses, fungi, and so on. So, and also they take part in endocytosis. That's the destruction of harmful materials before they get to the cytoplasm. So these are the function of lysosome. So they they protect the cell by destroying harmful materials. So we have this, which is called vacuole. Vacuole. So we can see the vacuole. This vacuole, you can see, is present in cell. It's present in cell, and their function is that they store nutrients. So they store nutrients and water on which a cell can survive. So for the survival of a cell, this organelle stores nutrients and also water for the survival of the of the cell. So they also store waste material. Yes, they store waste from cell, so to prevent cell contamination, so that these waste materials will not accumulate and contaminate the cell. So the vacuole stores the waste materials. So we have, there is another structure that I did not put here, which is very important. So this structure is called the cytoskeleton. So cytoskeleton, you can see. So cytoskeleton. So these cytoskeleton, they are very important in the cell because they give shape. They give shape to the to the cell, and they also provide support for the cell. This helps in the formation of vacuole also. So this cytoskeleton helps in the formation of this vacuole that we have talked about earlier. In cell signaling, they play a role in cell signaling. So having learned all this, we can see that these are components of the cell. So we have other components that are not included in this diagram, so which are peculiar only to plant cells. So the first one is the cell wall. So the cell wall is not indicated in this diagram. So the cell wall is only present in plant cell. Like I said, it gives rigidity to the cell, to the plant cell. So it gives rigidity to the plant cell. So the second one is the chloroplast. So chloroplast contains the greenish pigment called chlorophyll, which plants use in photosynthesis, which is a process by which they manufacture their food. So they use chlorophyll, which is present in the chloroplast. Another thing is the starch granules. So they are not listed in this diagram. So from this we can differentiate between a plant and animal cell. So we can know the similarities, we also know the differences. So we are going to be talking about the similarities first. So organelles that are common to both plant and animal are the cell membrane, nucleus, the endoplasmic reticulum, that's the rough and smooth endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes, the Golgi apparatus is present, and we have the mitochondria. Yes, the mitochondria is also present to them. The vacuole is also common, to both. So these are organelles that are common to both plants and animal. Why differences in these organelles are? So if we compare a plant cell and an animal cell, so we can see the differences between them. So we are going to start from the cell wall. So in plant cell, there is cell wall, while in animal cell, there is no cell wall. So another one is that the cytoplasm of plant cell is less dense. That means it's not filled like that of a animal cell. So why the cytoplasm of animal cell is denser than that of plant cell. So the plant cell lacks centrioles. Yes, there's no centrioles in plant cells, while centrioles is present in animal cell. There's no lysosome in plant cell, so lysosome is present in animal cell. So in plant cell, there is one large vacuole, one central vacuole, while in animal cell, there are numerous vacuoles, but they are small. They are smaller in size, but they are numerous. Another thing about plants is that in plant cell, there are starch granules and chloroplast, while animal cell lacks starch granules and chloroplast. And also, the plant cell stores lipids as oil. Plant cells store lipids as oil, while animal cell store lipids as fat. They store lipid as fat. So you can see the differences in plant and animal cells. So in the body, we also have what we call we have talked about cells. We've known about the different structure of cell and how this structure influence the function of the cell. And we also know that organisms, different living organisms, they have different numbers of cells, which depends on the complexity of the cell. So now we have some specialized cells in the body. So we can say that our body, the body of animals are made up of special cells in different parts. From the organization of life, we know that cell cell is the lowest level in the organization of life. So while cell combining with other cells and they perform the same function are called tissue. So tissue with other tissues that perform the same functions are called organs, while organs with other organs that perform the same functions are called system. So examples of specialized cells in the body include the muscle cells. So we can see that the body of animal is made up of muscles. So these muscles helps in various ways in the body. So we have the skeletal muscle. The skeletal muscles are muscle cell. Yes, the skeletal muscle cells, they are attached to the skeleton, which helps in carrying out movements and different activities in the body. So we have the smooth muscle cells, which are present in our organs, in the organs of animals. So we also have the cardiac muscle cells, which are present in the heart. So muscle cells are specialized muscles in the specialized cells in the body. So they are called sarcomites. So the muscle cells are called sarcomites. So we have the bone cells. Yes, bone cells are specialized cells in the body. So these bone cells, they relate together to help the bone to be able to carry out its functions, and they are called osteocytes, osteoblasts, osteoclasts. So all these are present in the bone. So we can say that the bone forms our skeleton. It is on this bone that the body is built, and it gives the body its shape. So and they help the body. So the strength of the bone will determine how strong the body will be. So we have blood cells. Yes, we have blood cells. Like the blood cell, we have different blood cells, like the red blood cells, which transport which contains hemoglobin. So this hemoglobin transports oxygen throughout the body. So we have the white blood cells, which fight infections and diseases in the body. So we have other